This is part 2 of the World Trade Centers, the 9/11 collapse of the Twin Towers. As I said before, there's no way in the world that these three towers could have fallen like pancakes. They could have fallen. There was no way in the world they could have without. They were professionally demolished by professional demolition teams. The steel girders had been cut on every floor, and nanothermite had been induced into the steel beams, and they were triggered by remote control sequentially, so that the floors so that the explosion occurred sequentially, and the floors fell just like a pancake. It was a professional job. There was no way that it could have happened, and I'm imploring you to research this, to go to architects and engineers for truth concerning 9/11. Go to it. I've spent 50 hours looking at the reports. Spend an hour, and you will see that this started the war on terror, that the war on terror was started. You will see that George Bush Jr.'s brother, Neil, was in charge of the security of the World Trade Center. You will see that Dick Cheney, our vice president, ordered NORAD and the others that stand down, not to mess with the airplanes. There was a mock drills going on. He had scheduled mock drills for 9/11 so that NORAD wouldn't know which was truth and which was false. It's a great cover-up by our government. Jesus said, "You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." He said that deception would that the very elect would be deceived in the very last days. You are the very elect, some of you, and you will not be deceived because you'll know the truth, and the truth will set you free. This is deception. When talked about the end times, Jesus says, "Don't be deceived." Paul says in 2 Thessalonians, "Let no one deceive you." But we have been deceived. We have been deceived because many of the church teachers are not appointed by God to teach. Many of the leaders in the church just have charisma and have no calling to teach. We've lost a lot of lives. We've lost our freedom because of this war on terror. We can't go to an airport without being frisked and ridiculed and herded through like cattle. I never did like being treated like cattle, but that's the way it is. After this happened, after 9/11 happened, there's usually an inquiry within 7 to 10 days. There's usually a task force that is put in place within 7 to 10 days. And it took George Bush Jr. 430 days to put a task force on it. The first person that he put on the task force was Henry Kissinger. Henry Kissinger is the main man, probably the whole leader of the New World Order. Henry Kissinger, he talks about the New World Order all the time. They're the one that appoints these presidents, you know. But there was such an uproar from the appointment of Henry Kissinger that he had to take him down, and they put someone else there who was one of their patsies. So you need to listen to my first video on this, because I'm not going to repeat everything that I said on this second video. As I was talking, my video was knocked off. I mean, and I was on a roll. On September 11, 2001, the 3 worst structural failures in modern history took place. The 3 worst structural failures in modern history took place when World Trade Center buildings 1, 2, and 7 suffered complete and rapid destruction. In the aftermath of the tragedy, most members of the architectural and engineering community, as well as the general public, assumed that the building's destruction had occurred as a result of the airplane impact and the resulting fires. This view was reinforced by subsequent federal investigation, culminating in FEMA's 2002 building performance study, and in the 2005 and 2008 reports by the National Institute of Standards and Technology. But since 9/11, independent researchers around the world, especially the French, have assembled a large body of evidence, now listen to this, that overwhelmingly, conclusively refutes the notion that airplane impacts and fires caused the demolition. It overwhelmingly refutes that the airplanes and the fires resulting could have demolished these buildings. The body of evidence, most of which FEMA omits from the reports, supports the troubling conclusion that all three skyscrapers were destroyed in a process known as controlled demolition, where explosive and other devices are used to bring down a building. As I said in the first video, George Bush's brother Neil was in charge of security of the World Trade Center. For months prior to the destruction of the World Trade Center, it had been undergoing a facelift. Now, steel girders, in order for these buildings to fall down like pancakes, like they did at free fall speed, as fast as they could fall, they had to have, the girders had to be cut on every floor and thermite put into these cuts. And then the thermite detonated. This is used by demolition companies and our military. They can be detonated by remote control. They're detonated sequentially and the building falls. Controlled fall. It didn't fall to the right, it didn't fall to the left, it didn't fall to the front, it didn't fall to the back, it didn't take out the other buildings around it. Now, one thing that I forgot to say before, there was lateral steel that weighed tons thrown at 600 feet laterally at a speed of 60 miles an hour. This shows explosions. The firemen and the police that were around the building said there were multiple explosions. Many of them were thrown out of the building and were knocked down because of the explosions. If you look at videos on this, you will see multiple explosions going off. There were 24 floors of concrete and steel that are missing in the rubble. Completely, listen to this, disintegrated, vanished. The white dust, the dust that the people were breathing, I'm going to get graphic, was the dust of the people that were incinerated, and the people, the very flesh and the very organs and all this dust was concrete and people and everything that the people were breathing. People were disintegrated. Our people, innocent people. And George is reading fairy tales to an elementary class somewhere. And he doesn't, when he gets the news, he doesn't say, "Excuse me, children, I need to go. I've got something to attend to." He stays there and finishes reading. Then the Great War on Terror. So, we have constant acceleration. The buildings fell at free fall speed. That meant that all the steel had to just completely give way at one time. You had lateral ejection. of multi-ton steel framing members being hurled distances of 600 feet or more at 60 miles an hour. Steel thrown at 60 miles an hour over 600 feet. You had one of the engines from the second plane land outside of the area. The second plane hit, and it went right through the building, and the engine was picked up, and it's not the same engine that's on the Continental flight. Matter of fact, as the plane approached the building, you can see a detonation. You see the plane, they've got pictures of it, there was something attached to the plane. So right before it hit, there was a detonation by the plane. Many testimonies say this was not a Continental plane, the second plane that hit. At least it wasn't a Continental plane. They say it had no logo on it. It didn't have a logo on it, and it was gray in color. We could suppose that these planes were hijacked and landed, and the people killed, and then substitute planes put on. Probably what happened. But I know this is too far-fetched for you guys. The buildings, it's impossible for them to fall straight down, people. The last building fell, and it fell without even being hit by a plane. And it was farther away than a lot of the other buildings that stood in the area. This was planned. This was a plan. This was staged. This was a false flag. This brought us into the war on terror. This allowed us to go into Saddam Hussein's territory and kill him and take him, and then create an imbalance in the Mideast, where now Iran is the main player in there. Iran is taking over Iraq now. Before, they just kind of fought each other always. But, we changed the balance of the Mideast. We did this. There was 90,000 tons of concrete and large volume of expanding pyroclastic-like dust clouds that were pulverized in the mid-air. 90,000 tons of concrete pulverized. 24 floors missing. I'm sorry. It was all together in all three buildings. There was 220 floors missing, each an acre in size from the debris. All right, I'm going to conclude this. I want you to study for yourself. I want you to get this in your mind, and things start falling into place. That you got Bill Clinton. He gets the jobs sent overseas. He gets rid of our textile industry, and then you have George Bush Jr. comes in and he starts the war on terror, and then you got Obama that opens the borders up and allows the terrorists to come in, take our guns. You got to see this is planned. We are under attack by our own government. I'm an American. I'm a veteran. I'm a patriot. I'm a Christian. And I'm bringing you the truth. So, until next time, this is Jim Stockstill saying I want you to keep looking for the handwriting on the wall.